Hello, my fellow chatterers and bookworms, and anyone else who's popped by because you're curious or you're lost. I'm Chatty, and welcome to my channel, Chatty the Mad Chatter. Today, I get to chatter away madly about stats. It's the end of May, and I'm here to tell you about everything I've read in May in terms of the stats. I have done a couple of what I've been reading each week in May wrap-up videos. So I'll link that for you to have a look through if you want to hear a little bit more about these books. So we are doing a one-shot no editing because I have no idea when I'm going to get a new laptop in which I can do editing again, but it's saving me a lot of time and I'm doing more filming. So blessing in disguise, perhaps. Cheers. So this is the first month where I set myself a TBR challenge. I did the game that I've been doing, which is essentially Snakes and Ladders, but I call it Book Ladders and Bookworms because we're on BookTube. And I have a lot of fun playing my game, and thank you everyone who watched it, commented, told me how much you enjoyed it. That really means a lot. It was really lovely to see. I have a great time doing it. So I did do another one for June, which you should see coming up, or I might have posted before, I can't remember. But this is the first one where I played it for the whole of, this is to decide my TBR. I'd just done it previously to like choose a few books for me to like a selection to read from. So there was a punishment or a reward resting on if I read each of these books that I picked for my TBR. So let's see if I did it. Here are the books that were picked for my May TBR. Words of Radiance by Brandon Sanderson, an adult epic fantasy. Took me a lot longer to read than I was hoping because it's a reread and I adore this book, but I did read it. Woohoo! 1 of 6 so far. Gathering of Shadows, the second in the Shades of Magic series by V.E. Schwab, again an adult fantasy. I've read this one. Rainbow Grey, Eye of the Storm, middle grade fantasy by Laura Ellen Anderson. I read that one. The Black Flamingo by Dean Atter, a contemporary novel in verse. I've read that one. Northanger Abbey by Jane Austen. I read that one. The Name of All Things by Jen Lyons, another chunker. And I read that one. So I completed my TBR, which means I get to draw out a reward and not a punishment. So I'll just grab my bag and let's see what reward I get. So I have my rewards here folded up and they're all going into this very handy Fairy Loot book bag. Happy reading. So thank you everyone on Shelf Space Discord who got involved in the conversation about what I could do to reward myself. Let's see which one I pull out. So I have already filmed my June TBR video because in order for me to get it out, it takes a lot of kind of setting up to film, and I need to do it when my family are not around because I pretty much take over the whole of the living space. So it would just be a bit chaotic otherwise. So when I did my June TBR, I had no idea whether or not I was going to complete my May TBR. So what I'm going to do is I'm doing like a pool of rewards and a pool of punishments because some of them will relate to the following TBR. So if it does that, then it will relate to my August TBR because that's the next time I'm doing a full-on book game. Okay, I've pulled one out. Let's see what it is. Here we go. It says, reduce the number I need to read on my next TBR game. E.g., play for 6, but I only need to read 4. And that is from Kristen on the Shelf Space Discord. So thank you, Kristen. So yes, this is one that relates directly to my TBR. So in August, I can put this in the reward pile. So if I have a bit of an awkward August, I need to only read a certain amount of that TBR. So I'm probably going to be playing for 6 again because that's what I play for. And then I think, and I'll decide what number I need to read to make it realistic. 4 could work, but it might need to be more 5, so just 1 knocked off. I will decide. But anyway, that's going to go into my pool. There we go. Okay, let's carry on with the stats. So I've got my 6 books for my May TBR and I have another 5 that I read. So I read a total of 11 books. So let's do the always fun massive book tower. I'm obviously going to put my chunkers on the bottom so I don't die. And this is going to be boring, so I'm going to pause it again. Okay, I think I have stability. There we go. This is my 11 books that I read in May, which again is probably something to do with the fact that I had 3 readathons that I was doing that pushed me to read more, and the fact that I had a reward and punishment resting on me completing my TBR. So although it does look impressive, I'm going to go through the different sizes of books. So I have different animals to represent different things. So I'm going to go through those now. So I've read 4 different sized books this month. So books that are under 300 but above 150 pages are what I call mouse-sized. And I read 6 mice-sized books, which I think is why I managed to read so many. Some of them might not technically be under 300 pages, but because they are a mixture of graphic novels and novels in verse, I wouldn't count them anything above a mouse size because those are really quick and easy to read. So I've got those 6 here. And I realised I didn't say what the extra 5 books were that I read. So when I've done sizes, I will talk about those extra 5 books. I then read 2 cow-sized. And again, these were the smaller sized cows. So this is 300 to 500 pages. And these 2 were both nearer 300 than 500. But they were over 300, so they're not mice. I'm going to move my teacup before it smashes because I'm going to need to make a second pile of books over here. I then read 2 elephant-sized books, and these are books that are over 500 pages but under 700 pages. And then I read 1 book that is a dinosaur. That's a book that's over 1,000 pages, and this is Words of Radiance, obviously. So those are all my 11 books in terms of their sizes. So yeah, I am impressed that I did manage to read a whole dinosaur and a couple of elephants. That was the bit that pushed me. The mice were very easy to read and the cows were only just slightly into cows. They should have been mice. So I'm now going to talk through a few of the other stats that I have with these books. So I'm going to pause the video again so that I can make some more piles. Except that once again, I forgot I was going to tell you about the other 5 books I hadn't named yet. So they are Long Way Down by Jason Reynolds, which is a contemporary YA novel in verse. Sweet Bean Paste by Durian Sukengoa, which is a adult contemporary. The Sad Ghost Club by Lisa Meddings, which is a graphic novel. This is kind of an epic love story by Case and Calendar, which is a YA contemporary. And The House with Chicken Legs by Sophie Anderson, which is a middle grade fantasy. So I like to read across a range of ages. So the ones I read this month were 2 middle grade books, Rainbow Grey and The House with Chicken Legs. 5 YA, which is The Sad Ghost Club, kind of an epic love story, Long Way Down, Black Flamingo, and Northanger Abbey is not a YA. Where's my other YA gone? There's 4 YA, not 5. Ignore me. 4 YA. And 5 adult, which is Northanger Abbey, Sweet Bean Paste, Words of Radiance, A Gathering of Shadows, and The Name of All Things. So that's quite a nice mixture of ages. I do feel like I want to be reading more middle grade because it's one of my favourites. I think my 3 favourite kind of subgenres are adult epic fantasy, YA contemporary, and middle grade fantasy, sort of more whimsical fantasy. Those just tend to be the things that work for me the best. So yeah, interesting that I'm not reading as much middle grade. I think it could be because one of my challenges is trying to read 35 adult fantasy books that have been the most popular over the last 7 years. So that's why I'm getting a lot of adult fantasy on my TBRs at the moment. Plus a lot of the series I'm trying to complete are adult fantasy ones. So that is probably why poor middle grade is being pushed to one side. And having said that, now talking about genres, it kind of makes a lot of sense. I read one classic, which was Northanger Abbey. I read 5 contemporary books, all of which YA, apart from Sweet Bean Paste, which is adult. And I read 5 fantasy books, 3 of which are adult and 2 middle grade. So yeah, I think I know my preferred reading tastes here. But it's nice to see the mixture this month. It was a lot more fantasy heavy last month, whereas this month I've got 3 different genres and a very kind of, like, it was very close between contemporary and fantasy. They pretty much drew. So that's quite interesting. Okay, so next is a new one for me. I'm going to talk about format. So as I'm doing this video, I'm working how to do it better. And I've made a pile behind me so you can see and I don't need to lift it up. So I have read 8 novels, 2 novels in verse, and 1 graphic novel. So Black Flamingo and Long Way Down are novels in verse, and The Sad Ghost Club is the graphic novel. And I think, well, this was definitely, I think, because of the 48-hour bookopoly. I was trying to make sure I had lots of short reads that would enable me to kind of hit more prompts. Although Black Flamingo was on my TBR already, and it was a reread and I loved it, and Sad Ghost Club I picked up from the library anyway. But it would have made sense if that had been. Long Way Down was definitely because I was looking for some other things. Although I did pick it up because it was mentioned that it had a good revenge trope, which was one of my prompts for Shadatham. I'm so pleased I picked it up. Absolutely loved Long Way Down. Okay, what do we have next? Oh yeah, another one that I've not spoken about before is where have I acquired these books from? So 9 books are mine, and then, oh, this is quite easy again. These 9 books belong to me, and then these 2, Long Way Down and The Sad Ghost Club, came from the library. And I have 7 books that were all new reads for me. So Gathering of Shadows, Sad Ghost Club, Long Way Down, The House with Chicken Legs, Rainbow Grey, Eye of the Storm, This Is Kind of an Epic Love Story, and Sweet Bean Paste were all new reads for me. And then I had 4 rereads. So Words of Radiance, Name of All Things, Northanger Abbey, and The Black Flamingo were all rereads. I had a really good reading month. Like, I've really enjoyed all of these books. It's been a really nice range of different things. So I've had really nice kind of easier reads to kind of balance out the heavy epicness, which has been really nice. I love the epic ones. With my rereads, I really do find that the reason I love rereading is not only one that I can kind of hang out with these characters again that I love and have this wonderful experience that I enjoy again, because I already know the story, I kind of feel I'm not rushing it as much, and I get to kind of pick up on things that sometimes I would have missed the first time round, because that was a time where I'm reading quicker because I need to know what happens and I'm worried about characters in danger, so I have to read quickly so they get out of danger. Whereas I feel like I can take my time more on the reread, and you spot things that you didn't spot the first time round. So yes, I have been enjoying all of my rereads. So I'm now going to look at the authors that I've been reading. So I have read 6 books by female authors, 1 book by a non-binary author, and 4 books by male authors. So it's an improvement from last month, but I do feel I want to make sure I'm finding more non-binary authors where I like the sound of their books, or more trans authors, to make sure that they are being appreciated for their work, and publishers get the message that we do want to hear what they have to say and appreciate their work, writing, their work, where people who people who are cis get more time of day, I think, from the publishers. And out of my 11 books, 4 of these are written by global majority authors. That is anyone who is Black, Indigenous, or people of colour. So anyone that's not part of the westernized Caucasian ethnicity. So the term global majority I actually picked up from the book Loud Black Girls. There was a piece of writing, and one of the essays in there was about trying to make something positive rather than moving away from sort of like ethnic minority terminology. No, I just said it just then. I'm still learning, but I quite like the term global majority, although BIPOC authors is more commonly used at the moment in the booktube community. So 4 out of the 11 is okay. It's kind of like last month. I think I had a similar kind of standing. It would be nicer if it was more evenly split, if it was half and half. And that's just down to like the books that I have, the series that I'm in the middle of reading. I have a lot of books on my list that I'm wanting to get to, but we'll see. I'm just making sure that I'm aware of what I'm reading and wanting to make sure that I continue to support authors that might not necessarily be published as much. So we now come to the part of the video which I started off thinking was a really fun thing to do. Will be fun to kind of see. I like watching it when I see it on other booktube channels, but I find it really hard. This is where I talk about, out of all the books I've read this month, which one is my least favourite and which one is my favourite. I struggle with this. I find this really hard. Recently, least favourite wasn't that difficult, but this time it is, because I've enjoyed all of these books. I've had a great reading month. They've all worked for me on different levels. So there were moments, I think, in all of these where I wasn't having as much fun as in other ones, but all of these books are really good books. I really enjoyed all of them. So with the Sad Ghost Club, I'm not like, it's a great story, it's done really well, the art's fantastic, it's a lovely concept, it's the right pacing for what it's trying to do, but I think it might just be because fantasy is my go-to rather than contemporary, and the other contemporaries I read were more harder hitting. This is very much kind of slice of life every day, although it does deal with heavy topics as well. A Gathering of Shadows, I was very much here for the ride. I enjoyed it, but there were so many points in here where I felt it could have been so much more. If it pulled together all the different Londons, rather than just feeling the focus was on one and then we have a little, almost like little asides from the other two, I felt like the whole of the plot could have all been interlinked much and woven much more tightly. But I had a great time with the characters. It was really fun. So I enjoyed myself, but I felt it could have been more, which is why it's on the least favourite pool at the moment. This is kind of an epic love story. I really enjoyed the protagonist. I loved the family. I thought the character who was deaf and how different people interact with them, and how it was kind of very much taken as surface value is the wrong word, but like it was just, no one made a big thing out of it. They spoke about it really normally, but no one made a big thing out of it. And the same with the queer representation in here. I loved all of that. The relationship in here I was invested in and I enjoyed, and it felt very heartfelt. But the thing that I struggle with at certain points was there's a lot of kind of crazy teen decisions in here that So I'm someone who's a little bit of a rule follower and a goody two shoes and doesn't like to be messy and is very clear with boundaries. I struggled a little bit with some of the messiness in here and the teen angstiness. Not so that it enjoyed my reading, so it's just a moment of like, okay. But I'm a 35-year-old woman reading about teenagers. So having thought about these a little bit more, I think probably my least favourite is The Sad Ghost Club. It's a brilliant book. I just think I've read so many good books this month, and I think out of all of these, I don't think this is one I would reread. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I've got it from the library. I'm definitely picking up the next one, but I don't feel the need to own it and reread it. Whereas these two, I can see me rereading in a few years' time. So that's that one. We now move on. Let's put them on here. To the even more tricky part, which is my favourite book. My favourite book. It's really hard. I think what I've started to realise for doing this for the last 4 months. Yeah, this is my 5th month because it's May. No, month number 5. Is that the difference between a new read and a reread is there. I don't know if it's just because it gives me an excuse to have more on my favourite list. Maybe. But with a reread, this is my absolute favourite series. Words of Radiance, Stormlight Archive. I love it. It's an incredible book. It's an incredibly intricate plot. The characters are fantastic. The world building is insane. I love it so much. Brilliant time with this reread. Adore it. At the same time, I love Black Flamingo. These are very different books. You couldn't do what you have in Black Flamingo in the same format as Words of Radiance. It wouldn't work. Same with Words of Radiance with Black Flamingo. I love them for very different reasons, and they work for very different moods and things I need in my life. So it feels really hard to compare the two. So I love these two rereads. That's all I'm going to say. I love those two rereads. New reads. Got 3 that I'm trying to choose between here. 3. I've got The House with Chicken Legs, which gave me, I had no idea what I was expecting with this one. There was a really beautiful atmosphere. There was great family dynamic. There was a really interesting protagonist. There was a fantastic premise. It went in ways I wasn't sure it was going to go in. There was some wonderful world and magicalness in here. And there was very much a kind of like, it was very big on the emotions as well, like with how they react to death, and making choices and the consequence of those choices and family. There was a huge kind of emotional impact within that one, as well as all the wonderful whimsiness and the beautiful storytelling. So I loved it. At the same time, I really love Rainbow Grey because I love all the whimsicalness. I love all the world building. I love the characters. It was a really fun time. But it gave me different things to what The House with Chicken Legs gave me. So it's really hard. And then a completely different story is The Long Way Down, which gives me completely different vibes. But you couldn't expect the same vibes because they're different stories. And the formatting in this is amazing, and it's so hard hitting, and the way it tells itself, it's really powerful. So I find this really hard. I actually can't pick. I did look at them all for a really long time. The video was paused. I was umming and ahhing. But I just can't do it. I can't pick one out of these 3 and say, I like this more than the others, because that would feel untrue. So these were my top new reads of this month. That's 3 books. La la la. That's all you're going to get from me. I can't narrow it down any more than that. So I'm not going to soul search and agonize over it. So there we go. That is all my stats for the month of May. I've had a great time in May. Really looking forward to June. I'm hoping that I can continue with this reading stack as I've pledged myself to another 3 readathons. One is the same. It's kind of following on. I have another TBR that I want to meet so I can get another reward. So yeah, I've got lots of reading plans. I'm very excited. How has your May been? Please chat to me down below about any of your thoughts, how you've been reading, what your stats have been, what you're struggling with or feeling an improvement on. I always love a chat. And as the fairy loot bag says, happy reading, everyone.